Hi, welcome back to the Clay Academy. I'm Mrs. Cherry. Welcome to my studio in my kitchen in Phoenix, Arizona. Summers are hot, and this is where I need to be, in my nice, cool kitchen. Today we are going to be making a little pot covered. It is a beautiful little flower box with a lid. And this lesson is based on the pinch pot, which is what we learned in our first lesson, if you recall. So to begin with, we need some clay. So I'm going to pull some clay out again. And I just need a little wad like we did before. I'm going to need 2 of them. So I have pulled out 2 pieces of clay. Let me dip down to my board so you can see what I'm talking about. All right. So I have 2 pieces of clay. One is just slightly larger than the other. And I'm going to take the first one, the bigger one, and form it into a ball like I did for my basic pinch pot tea bowl that I made. And remember, you can roll it on your board a little bit, but not too much, because if I roll it too much, it dries out, and I don't want that to happen. So my first step, if you recall, in making a pinch pot is to put my thumb right in the center to make that initial hole to begin with. And then using my finger and thumb, I'm going to pinch around and squeeze as I go. Squeeze, squeeze, pinch, pinch. I don't want to squeeze too much. When kids make pinch pots, and now it's big enough that I can put both thumbs in and push up with my thumbs as I press down with my fingers to move that clay to the sides of the tea bowl, of the pinch pot, I should say. So I am pushing, squeezing, and now I have a nice sized little pot, little bowl, and I can tap. If my edge becomes too crooked, I can do that to even it out. One thing that kids have a hard time with on this project, on tea bowl or pinch pots, is they want to squeeze the sides so much that it becomes this thin edge. You don't want to do that. So don't squeeze too much. And I'm going to put that back together. Continue my pinching to even it out. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to tap it again, put it on my board, and I want to smooth out any wrinkles, wetting my fingers and moving my fingers in a circular direction. I can smooth out those wrinkles, if there are any. I see a big one right there. Looking pretty good. There we go. Now I'm going to make sure my edge is even. I want an even edge. That means all the same thickness. So I'm coming around with that. Looks pretty good, except for where I squeezed it there. So I'm going to work on that just a little bit. Even it out a little bit more. Now remember, because it's a pinch pot, it needs a base. And we call that a foot. So I'm going to use some of this clay to make my foot. I'm going to roll it between my hands, rock and roll it Squeeze it out one way, turn it, let it squeeze the other way, and then to even it out, rock it back and forth with my fingers, moving outward with them. I like to keep my fingers open like this, move it outward. I'm not pressing down very hard at all, very lightly. Now I'm going to put it onto my pinch pot. I'm going to measure it. It's a little bit big. So I'm going to trim it with my pin tool. Put water, push it together. And then I'm going to set that to the side. Oh, I forgot to measure. So put that back on. Now remember, I want to measure where that is on here. So I'm going to trace around it with the dull end of my toothpick. If I use the sharp end, it's going to cut it, and I don't want to cut the bottom out of this. So always use the dull end when you're tracing around things. Then I'm going to dip my scoring tool in my slip, in my water. If you don't have slip, just water you can use. And then I'm going to score the base. And now I'm going to add a little bit of water, and put that on. And smooth out any imperfections on the inside if there are any. And then I'm going to stand it up. And there's my little bowl, my little pinch pot. Now, to make the top, if I want it to look like this, I am going to stuff it. So I'm going to get a piece of newspaper. And I don't need a whole bunch for this, but I'm going to ball it up. That was about a quarter of a page, and put that inside. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit more. I want it to overflow a little bit. That would be good, like right there, because I want a rounded top. I don't want a complete other pinch pot. I could do that, but what I'm going to do instead is take my piece of clay that I pinched out off of that. I'm going to add some little piece there to it, and then I'm going to knead it. When you put pieces back together again with clay, you want to knead it, push down with the palm of your hand, turn it, fold it over, push down, turn it, fold it over, push down. That keeps the air out of it. And then I'm going to get my boards. Remember, we talked about these as a tool. When I roll out my clay, I want it to be the same thickness. So I'm going to use my rolling pin. And I'm going to roll. And then I'm going to turn it, flip it over upside down, and roll it again. Because this is such a small piece of clay, it doesn't have to be much bigger than that. And you can see it's the same thickness all the way around because I use my boards. Now I'm going to take my pinch pot and I'm going to put it on here. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to cut out around the edge, around that. And there's my extra clay. Now, I am going to stuff it again. A little bit too much, I think. Not quite enough, but a little bit too much. I'm going to put this in the bottom. There we go. That's what I want. Now I'm going to drape this over the top and I'm going to attach it. So I want my scoring tool. I want my slip. I'm going to score around the edge here. So I scored the whole edge. Now I'm going to score the edge of the pinch pot all the way around. And now I'm going to put it together. I'm going to press that top lid right onto that where I scored. Press it down. Press it down, and I'm kind of squeezing it. My rounded top is looking pretty good. Squeezing it, pressing it together. I'm going to use a little bit of water here, and I see some imperfections there in the clay. Now, this is where I want to use just slightly on the edge. Just slightly roll that. There. I rolled it. Now I can use one of my wooden tools. I like this one that has that pointed end. And I can press this, get that, so that I don't see where the seam is anymore. I don't want to know where the seam is. So I'm going to just press that, use my fingers too, little bit of water. And pretty soon, oops, I don't see where that seam is at all. Nope. I'm going to round that up a little so I have a nice little domed shape here. And that looks pretty good. Now, I'm going to put a flower on the lid. We will be cutting the lid off later. Whenever you cut a lid, you never want to do it when it is first made. It needs to dry a little bit. So what I will be doing after I put my flower on this is cover the whole piece in plastic and let it sit overnight. Then the next day I can pull it out and I can cut the lid. So that will be another lesson that I will add to this video at the end. So it will be something you'll do later on. So I've got some scrap here. I'm going to start making my little flower. Now, to make a petal, what I like to do is just rock a little piece in the palm of my hand like that. Hold the tip, make kind of a point with the end, and then just flatten it with my finger. So there's one petal. Now I'm going to make some more. Rock it. Hold on to the tip. So I've got a point. Flatten it, squeeze it out. There's another leaf or petal. These could be leaves too. Do it again. Hold on to the tip. Flatten it out. So I'm making several of these that I am going to create my flower with. Now on my original that I showed you, I've got different size petals because they get bigger as they go out. So you would need a bigger piece of clay, and then I'm running out, so I'm going to need some more. So I'm going to add a little more clay. This one's going to be a bigger petal. And flatten that out. So get some more clay out of my bag. And I need a center for my flower. So I'm going to take a pretty good piece and roll it, make circles with my hands as I'm rolling, and I'll get a ball of clay. This will be the center. So I'm going to use my scoring tool, find the center on my pot, little here, score where it's going to attach, make sure there's water, a little water, press it into place. Now I can start adding my leaves. Score each one, score where it's going to go, and press it into place. Score each one, where is it going to go, press it into place. Score another, where's it going to go? Make sure there's water. Now my scoring tool, I'm dipping into the water as I'm going, so I'm creating that slip on there. I'm going to put this in the middle here. This is a bigger one. Water, water. So I'm getting a variety. Oops, wrong tool. Score where it goes. If you don't score and add your slip or your water when you're adding clay to clay, and this is where a lot of people make mistakes, at least kids do. They think, oh, I don't really need to add that water. I don't need to add that slip. And then boom, pretty soon, when it's dry and I go to put it into the kiln, and those little pieces that were not scored and slipped where they were going to go, then they just fall off. And I end up with a whole bunch of debris in the bottom of my kiln. So let's add one more. Now, one nice thing about clay, if you're not done, if you run out of time and you're not finished and you've got to go somewhere and mom says, come on, let's go, and you're not ready to do it, well, if you cover your piece with plastic, a plastic bag, make sure it's sealed up nice and tight so that no air can get to it. As long as it's sealed up in that plastic bag, you can always come back to it and continue working on it until it's completely dry. Then you've got problems. You can't do that. So that looks pretty good. I could add another layer inside if I wanted to add some smaller little ones, and I think that's what I did with the one I just showed you. So I can go on and add that. I'm going to use the base of this tool to kind of press it on. A couple more. And then I think we're pretty much done with this. Let's go two more. Two more. Score it, put it on there, press it into place. All right, so I think I'm done with it. Now I put some texture on the top of that center of the flower. did that by using one, let's see. I think I'll just use my pencil for this one. I'm just going to poke in all over this flower. Now, if I wanted to be really creative, I could take a tiny, 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 tiny little worm, make a tiny little worm. Roll that. As long as it's not too dry, you can twist your worms like that. See how I'm twisting that? And I can dip that in my water. I'll just dip it right into the slip there, and I could stick one of those in that hole. Ooh. Now when you do things like this, when you make little decorative things that are real skinny and small like that, they're very fragile. So you're going to have to be very, very careful and make sure that you don't bump them, because they will break super easy. Ooh, I like this idea though. So I'm going to go back and continue playing with this, and I will see you in a few minutes showing you how we're going to cut the lid off. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you in just a second.